It's time for the Stain Game with your host, the one and only Justin Menezes.
All right. Hey, good evening, folks. This is Justin from the Stain Game podcast. It is a pleasure to be with you. And let me just fix something here real quick. There we go. It is so good for those who are watching. I hope you're watching. And we have a good show for you today. We're basically doing numbers. So a lot of conversation comes up when we're looking at what's happening on Facebook with the Stain and Seal University page. And there's always a lot of folks asking about what to charge, what not to charge, and how to go about getting good margins and what to charge so that they are achieving those margins. So I thought it would be beneficial if we did a little numbers show. So let me pull up this sheet and we'll start from there. So I went on Google and I basically went to Google, went to ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT and Google what the going rates were for deck staining and fence staining. And basically, it broke it down into areas, or I decided to break it down into areas. And so if you look at this sheet, hopefully you can see it. If you're listening, we'll go over what the sheet actually says so that if you're listening, you're going to be able to see it, right? So basically in the Midwest, I got to make my screen a little bit bigger because my eyesight is not what it used to be. So in the Midwest, according to Google and ChatGPT, that includes Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, and North and South Dakota in the Midwest area. Deck wash and stain, the average price, according to Google and ChatGPT, ranges from $3.50 to $5.50 a square foot. And that is to wash, brighten. I'm sorry. Let me backtrack a little bit. That is to pre-treat with wood cleaner. Now, some will use bleach, and ChatGPT and Google mentioned that some deck restoration companies will use various chemicals, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Bleach versus sodium metasilicate versus whatever other chemicals you want to try to use to clean a deck. So what they came up with was $3.50 all the way up to $5.50 a square foot to strip, brighten, and stain. Now the stain and those prices, and I'll touch on this here in a second, is anywhere from $5 to $7+ a square foot. And again, they do mention in there that the prep will vary from company to company. Some folks will sand, obviously if you're stripping, you're going to need to sand. But when it comes to deck staining and washing, there is that caveat in there. On the East Coast, we're talking about New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Carolina, North Carolina, Maine, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Delaware. Those prices, again, deck wash and stain, $5 all the way to $7.50 a square foot. And then they have $7 to $10+ a square foot for deck washing and stripping. I did fail to recognize that for fence wash and stain in the Midwest, they're looking at $3 all the way up to $5 a square foot, with heavy restoration / stripping from $5 to $7+ a square foot for fence. Now, I live in the Midwest. I'm in Nebraska, in the Omaha area, Omaha-Lincoln area, and there is no way in hell that people are paying $3 to $5 a square foot for fence washing and staining. I'm sorry, but we have a hard time in our area getting $1.50 a square foot to wash and stain. Now, there are customers who pay $1 a square foot to stain only. There are customers who will pay $1.50 a square foot to wash and stain. But $3 to $5, not happening in Nebraska. Maybe in Illinois, maybe in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. But in Nebraska, that's not what's going on. So I don't know where they get those numbers from. So back to the East Coast, we talk about deck staining. Wash and stain is $5 to $7.50. That's the average. That's what Google and ChatGPT are saying. Strip and stain anywhere from $7 to $10+ a square foot. Fence wash and stain $4.50 to $6.50. Let me know if that's what you guys are getting or able to charge on the East Coast. It'd be interesting to find out what various prices are going. And then heavy restoration, according to Google and ChatGPT, $7 to $9+ a square foot. Now, the southern areas, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida. Deck wash and stain, $4 to $6 a square foot. Strip and stain, $6 to $8.50 a square foot. Fence washing, $3.50 to $5.50. And then heavy restoration or strip, $5.50 to $7.50+ a square foot. And then West Coast, finally the West Coast, good old California, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Alaska. Believe it or not, Alaska, according to Google and ChatGPT, is the most expensive area to do deck and fence restoration. It is, it requires the most, and I would probably guess that the reason is because how short their season is and how difficult it is to stain in Alaska. But their prices, $5.25 all the way up to $7.75 a square foot for deck wash and stain. To strip and stain, $8 to $10+. Fence wash and stain, they say $4.50 to $6.75 a square foot. And heavy restoration or strip and stain, $6.75 on up. So if you're watching and you're in those areas, I would love to find out if that's what you guys are getting and have a better idea if those prices, how accurate they are or how inaccurate they are. I know for Nebraska, like I said, our average we get is anywhere from $1 a square foot for staining only. And depending on light cleaning to heavy restoration, we're in that $1.50 a square foot. Sometimes, you know, if we're doing a real heavy restoration, we can get $2. But like I said, we do not get a lot of fence washing and staining jobs. And our biggest complaint that we get from customers is the cost. So I don't know where ChatGPT and Google are justifying those numbers. But again, I can only speak from my own personal experience. I'm going to add here in the chat to please send in questions and let us know if the pricing is correct accordingly to your area of the nation. All right, so let me submit that comment in there. Hopefully it goes out and people are able to see it. And let me know what you think and what you're getting. Let me get a quick drink. So next, what I have for us is a PowerPoint presentation on numbers. And before I get into that PowerPoint, I wanted to share or give you a little bit of a background on why I created the PowerPoint and the purpose of the PowerPoint. So, like I mentioned, I follow the Stain and Seal University Facebook page pretty diligently. I also see a lot of other deck staining platforms out there. Wizard of Wood. There's a Deck Medic. There's a bunch of good. Wood Defender has one, and I follow it along just to see what is being said and what's being asked. Sometimes I chime in, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just don't have time, and sometimes it's too much drama. And so one of the things that always gets asked, and I understand where the question is coming from, is what should I charge and what should I not charge? And we always hear about know your numbers, get to the numbers so that you can figure that out. And I'm a firm believer from my own personal experience that it is super, super important that you figure out what you need to be charging based on your operation. So what does that mean? So Justin, what are you talking about? So I am talking about, for me personally, I will speak from my own personal experience because I know what I have when it comes to numbers. All right. So for me, we are still using the old-fashioned method of a pressure washer that we load up into the truck and we unload when we go to every job. We do not have a trailer with a rig system on it, a wash and rig. We do not have tanks and all those things. Our vehicles are paid for. There is no payment due on them, so we don't have that monthly burden on our shoulders and to account for in our expenses. All our equipment is paid for. We do not lease, rent, or occupy a commercial facility, whether it's a storage unit, whether it's a lease space where you're operating out of. We operate out of my garage. There's tax benefits to operating out of your garage, just like there's tax benefits to operating out of a storage unit, to a lease unit, to a rental commercial space. I'm not here to advise you on financial or on tax so again, everybody has different taxes, different codes, different things. So look into your area and talk to your tax professional and find out what tax breaks you fall into and what is beneficial to you when it comes to where you're operating and all those kind of things. So let's get into the numbers so we can kind of, you don't just have to hear me ramble on. I can't believe I'm getting this to work, which is phenomenal. I told my daughter this will be kind of a stellar day if I can get this to work, and it is coming up. So gross margin versus net profit. How to price jobs, control costs, and keep more money after every wash and stain project. That is the purpose of this, is to help you understand numbers, why those numbers are important. So let's get, I've got a touchy keyboard. So why this matters, a busy season you can still lose money during a busy season. So I've shared numerous times that for about the first, I'm going to say 6 years. That might sound embarrassing. I'm not embarrassed in saying this because it's the truth. And what do I have to gain or lose by lying to you? You do not gain anything by me filling your mind with Justin is a millionaire, Justin's this or Justin's that. I'm not selling coaching. I'm not selling consulting services. I'm just offering advice and experience that I have felt. So for, let's just say 6 years, I ran what I thought was a successful staining or wood restoration business. And after 6 years, I was still not making any money. I was still not profitable because I was busy. And when you're a one-man show, you tend to put a lot of things on the side burner till when you have time to work on things, whether it's maintenance, whether it's doing your books, paying your outgoing invoices for supplies, stain, materials, things like that. And I'm not ashamed to say that for about 6 years, we ran a non-profitable business. We did not know if we were charging correctly, if we were not charging correctly. And so it took actually going to a Stain and Seal University event in Springfield, Missouri that was held by Joe Everest and he had Caleb come by, and they talked about margins and the importance of margins. And so a lot of this comes from that presentation. I just put it in my own words and my own way. So hopefully it makes sense. So a busy season can still lose money when stain, cleaner, sealer, and fuel are underestimated. So you're buying all the products and you're not taking into account how much you're paying, and what you are charging is not equaling, or you're not profitable. So you think, I'll give you a good example. We always hear about the $99 house washing person, a guy, gal, whoever it might be. And I was very notorious when I was delivering mail. So I would go and do my mail route. I was considered a rural carrier, mail route, and I was able to deliver mail like you would not believe. I could do an 8-hour route in 3 hours. All right. And that would allow me to go case my mail, deliver it, be back, be done out of the post office in my vehicle by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and still get paid for 8 hours. That's how the mail system works, believe it or not. They estimate what your route is worth, 8 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, whatever it is. If it takes you 10 hours, you still get paid 8 hours. If you do it in 3 hours, you still get paid 8 hours. So it benefits you to be fast, efficient, and quick. And so I would go and stain a deck, and I would charge $400. Now, this was in 2014. 2014, give or take. And obviously underpricing myself, underpricing the market, underpricing other people staining in that market. And I would then find out that with the cost of stain, cost of cleaners, all those things that were included, that I was not charging enough. So it is important to know how much material you're using: tape, brushes, plastic, poles, sanding discs, your sanders, your stain, your cleaner, your brightener, all the things that you're utilizing. You need to know how much you're spending, and you need to make sure that you are charging enough to cover those expenses. All of us are going to be different. I was the guy with the 2-gallon pump sprayer. My pump sprayer is $30, give or take, at Walmart. Works great. Chaplain Home Services little pump up sprayer. We still have 5 or 6 of them sitting in our garage that we utilize. When you're using one of those, it is far less expensive when it comes to cost than it is to run a wash rig that may have cost you $15,000 to buy and purchase. And when you're doing 2 cups of cleaner in that 2-gallon pump up sprayer, you can better control and understand what your costs are, because you're doing 2 cups. And I'll go into this a little bit later on the slide, but that's what that is about. Just understanding your expenses and what you're charging. Labor hours. There's a lot of us, me included, that I would go and do a job, and I wouldn't take into account how many hours I was spending at the job. When I first started washing and staining, it would take me hours to wash a deck because I was using water. And then it would take me hours, water and pressure. It would take me hours sanding and prepping that deck before I could even stain it. And I was making the same mistake that many people still make, and that is not accounting for my time, not paying myself because I was the owner operator. You need to keep track of your labor hours, washing, staining, selling, and account that into your numbers. Callbacks. We all love when we don't get a callback, when we didn't miss a spot or we didn't leave something behind. We had to go back the other day to grab a tarp that got accidentally left behind. That is time, fuel, and expense. So it all eats into your profit at the end of the day, and especially at the end of the year. And then the one thing that a lot of folks forget about when they're pricing is the overhead, or I like to call it the back room expense. What do I mean by that? Your truck, your van, your rig, whatever expense. If you're having Again, I told you all our vehicles are paid for. We run a debt-free operation. We don't have any debt on any of our equipment, on our business, anything whatsoever. But there are people who have a car payment, a truck payment. You need to take into consideration what that truck payment is so that you can break it down monthly, what you should be including in your estimate to cover your truck payment, to cover your insurance, workers' comp, your business insurance. If you own a facility, you want to have insurance on there. Don't be that person who does not have insurance and then you work with a flammable substance and it catches on fire and burns down your business, your location, and you do not have insurance. Cover yourself. Find out what that insurance comes down to at a daily rate, break it down, and implement that into your numbers. Your marketing, your ads, Facebook ads, marketing for Nextdoor, for your Google ads, whatever marketing you're doing, you need to figure out that monthly expense, break it down daily, and then implement that into your operation expense. Admin costs all get ignored. All right. I've made that mistake. A lot of you are probably saying, yeah, I don't have those issues. I don't make that mistake. This is for everybody in a broad umbrella. Take it as you will. If you're not dealing with these problems, congratulations. All right. So here are some key terms. Gross revenue. Total customer price for the project before subtracting costs, right? So today we did a deck, we stained it, and I'll break down the cost of that deck here in a little bit. And you can see real time a job that we did, what we charged, what we spent on expenses. All of these things, we'll do a real life example and you can kind of get a better idea. Cost of goods sold for us. We're not talking about selling stain on a shelf or selling a brush on a shelf like if we were Sherwin-Williams or Home Depot. We're talking about cost of goods sold to do the job. That's your labor. And again, always include your time because you are not working for free. If you're married, you have a significant other, you're divorced, you have children who depend on you, whether it's through payments for child support, whether it's alimony, whether they live at home, you need to cover your expense and your time. So that's your labor, that's your stain, that's your cleaner, your brightener, fuel to get to the job, to run the equipment. If you have rentals, a lift, if you're renting ladders, if you're renting a pressure washer, a sprayer, those are all things that we're talking about. Masking supplies, paper, tape, plastic, all of that needs to go in there. And then obviously your disposables like your brushes. Some of you guys will throw away your brushes. We're talking about all of those things. So anything that you need to do that job. Gross margin is money left over after you take those cost of goods. That's what should be left over for your gross margins. And then your operating costs or expenses, that's your business costs not tied to one job. Like we talked about your insurance, your lease, your office, your ads, your marketing, software, those kind of things. And then net profit, that's money left over, that direct costs and operating expense. That's your take home. That's your profit at the end of the day. All right. I told you I would give you a real life example. Some of you may or may not have seen the deck that we posted today that we stained and washed. It was about 1,000 square foot. So that'll give you an idea of the size of the project. So this is our numbers. All right. So for us, we charged $5,000 to do that deck, 1,000 square foot. Now that 1,000 square foot is floor. There are no rails because he has vinyl rails. It is the floor. It is the fascia boards. It is the steps coming down off the deck. And it is the cross beams going across underneath the deck that support it. And then the posts. That comes out to about 1,000 square foot. And we charge $5 a square foot to wash with wood cleaner, brightener, sand it, tarp it. We don't plastic. We don't mask the house. We don't tape the house. We tarp it. We put down water on the bottom of underneath the deck where the concrete is. The water comes directly from the customer. And then we use our cleaning solution, which is like cleanup that Expert Stain and Seal sells, but we make our own. We use Orange Zeps degreaser, and then we also use Dawn dish soap, depending on what's cheapest. If it's Walmart brand, sometimes we'll get it from the dollar store. Sometimes we'll see it on sale at wherever. So our cost of goods to do that job came out to $520. Now that includes labor. I was there just myself, and I'm including my time as though I was paying an employee to be out there. All right. So in that cost of goods is my labor, my wash time, labor consists of wash time, stain time, cleaner, brightener, degreaser, brush, stain. And then we don't count the tarps because the tarps have been paid for years and years ago, and they continue to be reused and reused and reused. So we don't even include that. It does include fuel trip for driving to and from the job, as well as the pressure washer fuel. So after our cost of goods, we had a gross margin of $44.80. That's not our take-home pay. We have a $2,000 overhead that we account for the month. Okay. So if we have a job like this, we can get rid of our complete overhead in one job, and our take home for that job, even with all of that, is $24.80. All right. We'll make it even a little simpler. All right. So gross margins, right? Gross margin equals your job, your revenue, minus your direct costs of goods, right? So here you go, $5,000. I told you that's what we charge. That's what the customer's paying, $5,000. We have $520 of direct cost. Our margin, our gross margins after that job is $44.80. That's an 89% gross margin percentage. We typically want to be 60 and above. We need to be at 60 and above. And that's for us. If you want to be at 30, you want to be at 40, you want to be at 20, everybody's numbers are going to be different. But that's why it's important for you as a business owner to know your numbers. For us, 60 and above. All right. So based off that job that we did today, we talked about our gross margin, $44.80. Operating expenses for the month is $2,000. Net profit is $24.80. So our net profit margin on that one job would be 55% if we just did one job for the month. Okay. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So here we have a little bit better breakdown for you guys to understand how we break down our jobs. All right. So every job we do this. Now, CRMs can do this for you. There's all kinds of programs out there that can do this for you. You just have to implement the numbers so that it can figure this stuff out for you. You can do Excel. You can do, I can't remember. I can't get the words out of my mouth right now. But anyways, there's lots of different programs. You can even ask ChatGPT to help you, and it'll help you do it. I don't know how accurate it's going to be, but here's our breakdown. 5,000 was the job. That's what we sold it for. Now we're using numbers directly from Stain and Seal. Now these are not contractor prices. This is not renegotiated prices that you can talk to Caleb and Ashley and the crew at Stain and Seal or Expert Stain and Seal. This is somebody who goes on the website and orders a bucket, a stain, cleaner, brightener, wherever. All right. And so I'll break this down for you in a little bit. Stain and Seal, we used 5 gallons of stain. We had some stain left over, but that's what we took. We took 5 gallons of stain with us. We always take a bucket of stain, whether we're going to use a gallon, we're going to use 5. It is better to have more stain on hand than to have not enough stain on hand and then have to go back and forth to grab stain. The job that we were at today is about 15 minutes from the house. Not a big deal if something needed to be picked up. But if you're an hour and a half from a job site and you're traveling 3 hours, each time that you leave and come back, that adds up. So we like to take a bucket to every job that we go to, or numerous buckets to every job that we go to. So stain and sealer is $250. Cleaner and brightener, we don't do masking. That came out to $104. And how we figured that out was 2 cups, or not 2 cups. Where's my sheet? I don't know where I put my sheet. Anyways, it came out to $52 for cleaner and then $52 for brightener. Labor costs were $162.50, and that is for roughly 6.5 hours, if I'm not mistaken. 2 hours to wash, 4 hours to stain. There's our fuel that we use. We charge $30 to go to every job. That covers our fuel cost for washing. That also covers our drive time for fuel to get there and back. We pay our employees while they're driving, so that goes into our labor costs. Our office insurance, admin or administration ads, we take that $2,000 that we have roughly every month in an expense for workers' comp insurance, for business insurance, for our admin, for our Google, our website, all our admin things, and all those things. It comes out to about $70 that we charge per job in that pricing. Money that we kept from that job when we break it down. So that job, we were able to take home roughly $43.83.50. Now that's a good paying job. Not every job pays that well. Not every job is a $5,000 job, right? But that's a real life experience of a job that we did and completed today that we can give you numbers on. So common mistakes that hurt your profit or hurt the business's profit: pricing by feeling. If you've heard Caleb on his stain and seal events, he talks about walking up to a deck, not even measuring it, just kind of eyeing it and saying, I can do it for $1,000. And then you come to find out you way lowballed yourself. You should have charged $2,000. After you measure it, figure out how much stain. Again, this goes back to one of the first slides where it's super important to figure out your numbers, your materials that you're going to need for the job, so that you don't price it by eyeing it, but by actually using your numbers to benefit you. You confuse cash with profit. Those first 6 years of my business, we had a lot of cash in the bank until the end of the year. And then our bills got paid, our taxes got paid, employees, all the things that were going out the door. And then our bank account looked horrible. Don't forget, bank balances look good before payroll, insurance, taxes, and rework, and all the things that come with it. So don't fall into that mistake. Ignoring production rates. Crews take longer than the estimate because of prep, masking, drying was missed, all those things. That goes back to number one. When you go walk up on that deck, take it serious, look at what you're looking at, and make sure that you're accounting for all the what ifs. What if there's 3 coats of latex underneath there, and we're just thinking there's one and it's going to be an easy strip, and then we're there for 7 days. Don't fall into those mistakes. Over discounting. We're going to talk about discounts. There's a lot of ways to discount, right? There's the military discount, the first responder discount. There's the 5% off. There's this and that. Those discounts eat away at your profit, and they'll eat away at your profit faster than you can expect when it comes towards the end of the year. I'll give you an example in the next couple of slides, I believe. No job costing. Completed jobs are not reviewed against the estimate. So again, making sure your numbers are accurate, you're charging enough, you're accounting for your expenses. Those are all things you need to continuously look at, because at the end of the year, it'll be too late to adjust and make corrections. Not charging for quality. This is a big one. Premium prep, stain, and services are priced like a commodity of work. If you want to be the average guy, charge like the average guy. If you want to be the professional, you want to be the restoration expert, charge like you're an expert, right? When we require the best care, I think my wife's a physical therapist. She is a cash-based physical therapist. So her clientele are typically individuals who want the best treatment and service that money will buy because they are paying for it out of pocket. It's not Medicare. It's not Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's not insurance. It is money coming out of their pocket. And if my wife's services don't meet their expectations, she will not have clients because they will not pay what she is asking if they're not getting what they're paying for. So take that into consideration also. So here are your key indicators to keep track. Your revenue booked, how much you sold the work for, your gross margins, make sure you're within that margin level that you want to be at. Check your material costs. We have had issues with employees who were not reusing brushes. They were throwing perfectly good brushes away because they weren't buying them. They were just going to Sherwin-Williams and picking up brushes and charging them to the account. So keep track of your materials that you're using. Are people throwing away perfectly good brushes? Are they not reusing brushes? Are they, what's another one? Overusing cleaner. If you can do a deck washing and cleaning job with 1 cup per gallon of water, why are you doing 2 cups per gallon? And then the reverse aspect of things is if you need to be putting 1 cup of sodium hydroxide or wood stripper and 1 cup of metasilicate to do a 50-50 mix because you want a hotter mix, it is better with material costs to do the 50-50 mix than to do 2 cups per gallon and then have to reapply another 2 cups per gallon. So now you're at 4 cups per gallon and you're not just using more material, but you're using way more time. And that goes into your labor hours versus what you estimate it will take to do that job. Always overestimate your time. What do I mean by that? It's very simple. I think everybody knows. I'm keep it simple, stupid. If you know, based on the numbers and experience, measurements, that job's going to take 4 hours, it's okay to estimate it at 8 and cover yourself so that you're not underselling yourself. It's better to oversell than to undersell. And that comes into the callbacks, because what if something goes wrong and you have to go back because you guys, gals, did it in 2 hours. You estimated 4, and now you're going back because there were areas that were missed, that it was hot. People were sweaty. They were ready to go home, and they cut some corners, and now you have to go back and touch it up. Well, you estimated it at 6, so you have some wiggle room to cover that callback, to cover the touch-ups. It rained. Now you got to do a light sand and then recoat. You covered those things in your estimate by overbooking or overestimating the amount of time. And then, of course, you got to keep track of your profit. Make sure you're making money. So how to improve your gross margins? Don't walk the deck and eye it. Measure it. Take into considerations the actual condition, what it's going to take to clean it, prep it. Know your standardized formulas. That's your cost per square foot. Make sure you know how to do that, how to figure out how much stain it's going to take and not take, as well as your cleaners. Plan your work for your crew. Like, make sure you have the right tools, you have the right people doing the job that you want them to be doing, and making sure that there's a standard operating procedure, or have the knowledge of, hey, we're going to this job. We're going to need sanders. We're going to need extension cords. We're going to need a ladder. We're going to need extension poles for the floor and for the outside. We're going to need the blower. We're going to need a rake to rake up the residue from the strip job. We're going to need extra tarps. We're going to need cleaner. All the things that you're going to need to make sure that you're taking those things and putting them in so that you're not driving back to go collect those items because you didn't grab them when you were supposed to, or when the crew was supposed to. And then you sell yourself as the expert, right? So sell the longevity of your work, your workmanship, your craftsmanship, your expertise. Make sure that the curb appeal that you are promoting is actually worth the curb appeal. Don't do cheap labor and then charge a premium for it. Better estimating plus better production equals better gross margins. All right, so the danger of small discounts. We talked about this a little earlier. So the example is a $5,000 job. You do a 5% discount. You just took $250 out of your margin. So that 5% discount, which a lot of folks don't think is a big deal, is $250 less that you're going to be making on that job. Now, 10%, we do 10% discounts for military first responders. But again, you have to cost analyze what you are charging and know that you can afford the 10% discount. So a 10% discount on a job like that is $500. So no discount. Our profit margin was, or not our profit margin, our gross margin was $44.80. With a 5% discount, it's now $42.30. You know, not a big deal, but it's noticeable. And that's just one job. You add 100 and something jobs a year to $250 discounts. That's $25,000 at the end of the year. So those things add up. And then if you're doing 10% discounts, you know, 10% discounts on 100 jobs that are $5,000 jobs, that's $50,000 that you just discounted away. So there you go. Protect your selling. Revenue is vanity. Gross margin is health. Net profit is success. Price every job with direct costs, review every job after completion, and protect the margin that funds the business. Next step, start a weekly job costing review. So that's what you need to do. You need to do that every week. And a lot of you, including myself, probably feel or think to yourselves, well, how am I going to do all this? Where am I going to find time to do it? And how am I going to be able to do all this on my own? Well, that's where I'm just checking to see if there's any comments. I don't see anything. I just don't want to ignore anybody. Look one more place. Anyway, oh, what a good pocket. Well, appreciate it. It's not coming up on my feed. I don't know what's going on. But again, I'm not a very tech savvy person. Maybe I'm missing out on something. But anyways, so I hope that's helpful. All right. I'm sorry, I got distracted. We were talking about that's a lot of hats to put on, a lot of things to do, right? My first 6 years, again, I'm not ashamed to say it, we did not make any money. We were busy as all could be. I've talked about how, you know, my wife hated the fact that I was working so much and having so little to show for it. And that is the most frustrating part of being a family-owned and family-run operation where your family is depending on you. And if you don't believe that's important, my wife and kids aren't here right now. Not because I did something wrong. They are out enjoying Florida right now. I just looked at my kids. They're on a fish charter boat right now, the Gideon and Steele. They're out enjoying being youth, enjoying what success can bring to them. Now, do we live a lavish lifestyle of just having more money than what we know to do with? No, we don't. All right. That one job that we did for $4,000 something is net, you know, after we take out 1 month's expense, let's just say we cleared $2,000 on that. Our average job in Nebraska runs anywhere from $1,250 to $1,750. That's typically our average job, right? Now, we still use the same formula, right? So that let me pull this up and we'll change some things so that you can understand where I'm coming from when I say this. Because I don't want you thinking, holy crap, Justin is doing 5,000 jobs left and right, because we do get some really good paying jobs. All right. So this $5,000 number, let's change that to 1,500. And let me grab a pen or pencil and paper, and I'll break this down for you. Because like I said, I'm not afraid to do that for you. So we're going to do a $1,500 job. And I'll tell you, or I'll share with you exactly how we figure this out. So on that $1,500 job, that's what the customer's paying us. I told you we're going to take 5 gallons of stain with us, because we take a bucket every job we go to. So we're going to take $250 off of there, even though that's not what we're paying and that's not what we're using. Okay. But we're going to break it down. So a $1,500 job, 5 gallons of stain divided by $250 is how much, folks? $50 a gallon, right? 5 times 5 is 25. Add the 0 is $250, right? So an average job, we use 2 to 3 gallons. We're gonna go 3 gallons, so we're gonna do $150 in stain. Okay. And now, like I've said before, some people are like, hey, I only pay fill in the blank for my stain. Figure out what you're paying, break it down by the gallon, and figure out how many gallons you use on a deck. So next line of entry we have is our cleaner, brightener, masking, right? We don't do masking, but we do cleaner and brightener. On that $1,500 job, I'm going to estimate, because I know what we use on cleaner and brightener. We would use a $1,500 job. We're going to do 2 cups. Yeah, we'll do about 2 cups of cleaner and 2 cups of brightener. That's typically what we use. What's the cost of brightener? We figured out that big job took 52 and 52. So brightener, I think it's $3 a cup is what we figured out. Yep. So 2 and 2, that's 4. So that's $12. Then our labor crew. So we're going to wash that deck in 1 hour. That's usually what it takes us to set up our pressure washer, hook up the hoses, pre-wet the deck, put the cleaner on. I'll tell you what, we'll do 2 hours to wash the deck, rinse down the house, rinse off the patio, do what we normally do. And then to come back out, we're going to do 3 hours. So that's 5 hours. 5 hours at $25 an hour is how much? $125. That makes sense? And then we have our fuel, which I told you is $30, because we charge $30 at every job. And then we have our $70 admin and our overhead. We call it the overhead fee, $70. So we have quick math here, 150, 162, 187, 287, plus or my with plus 30, so 287, 317 plus 70, 387. Expenses 387. So then I'm going to pull out my trusty calculator.
Or I guess
Sorry about that. Pull out my trusty calculator. 1,500 minus 387 gives us 1113 is our gross margin number. 113. And so now you take that 113 and you, hold on a second. I have to answer this message real quick. Sorry about that. When the wife calls, the wife calls. All right. All right. So for margins, you're doing is your gross profit. So 1113 divided by 1500, and that'll give you, and then you multiply that by 100. Right. So go back to my calculator. 1113 divided by 1500 times 100. That gives you a 74% gross margin. 74.2, but 74%. Those are our numbers. I told you at the very beginning that for us as a business, we want to be at 60% at a minimum in order to pay our taxes, to pay our employees what we're paying them. We do W-2s, so all our employees get their taxes taken out of their payroll. They're deducting towards unemployment. That's an episode we need to one day do, which is 1099 versus W-2 employees. And if you're not following what's happening with the IRS, I highly recommend that you look into changes that are taking place within your state, as well as with the federal IRS and the 1099 laws that are being implemented. There are big changes happening that will screw a lot of small contractors and subcontractors if you're not careful. Again, I'm not a tax advisor. I don't advise anybody with their taxes and stuff. I can give you advice that I have done and that has worked for me or is working for me, but that's about it. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that was not super confusing and that folks were able to get some things that that's useful for them. But that is why I feel that's why for me, when I say learn your numbers, I highly recommend that you do that, because there is a lot to be gained and a lot that you're not going to lose by knowing what you fill in the blank, Mr. and Mrs. owner of whatever kind of operation that you're running. It is super important that you know your numbers in order to be a successful, profitable business. Nothing makes me happier than being able to send my kids off to go to Florida if they desire to go on a fishing charter. Nothing makes me happier than having my house paid for and not having that stressor or that mortgage hanging over my head and not knowing if I'm going to be able to pay the bills because I don't know if I'm charging enough or not charging enough. Nothing makes me happier than knowing that I'm putting money away for emergency days, that I'm not doing what I did those 6 years where I thought I was doing really well and then came out to find out I was doing poorly and had to get a winter job to make ends meet. That's what this is all about. For me, we started this business so that I could be home more often. My wife still has to remind me because I love doing what I do. I love going out and staining decks, washing decks, being out on the job site. I am not a behind the desk, sit in front of the computer business owner. Probably never will be. So find out what works for you. Figure out your numbers based on your operation, what you need to charge, what you should be charging in order to be profitable, for your margins to be where you need them to be, and get to that point. Folks, I hope this has been somewhat helpful for you. I know it was helpful for me when I learned about margins and net profit and all those things. There's still things to learn. I don't see any questions, but that might just be my fault. That questions aren't coming through. But till next time, let me know if you have any questions. I'm always happy to answer, always happy to be as helpful as I can be. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions and we'll get to that. That's all that we have for today. It is 8:01. I think we're just about at an hour. And till next time, maybe next time we'll do a podcast on 1099 versus W-2 employees. And we'll see how that one goes. Till next time, folks, have a good one. We'll see you later. Keep staining, keep hustling, keep doing what you're doing.